A blessed good day. Today I want to respond to the claims that the 5G network is responsible for the coronavirus epidemic. Some conspiracy theorists are saying that it is causing corona or COVID-19, and others are saying that it's making people's immune system so weak that therefore they are unable to fight off COVID-19. There are some who are saying that 5G network is causing people to be sick and the governments are blaming it on COVID-19. So let's address it. Is there any truth to this? Well, I think not. And this is not me being gullible or me being too skeptical, but it's just relying on facts and using the common sense that God gave me and doing proper research. And I would invite you to do proper research. First of all, we need to understand that there are places that do not have a operating functional 5G network. For example, Iran does not have a fully operational 5G network, and yet we have thousands and thousands of deaths in Iran from COVID-19. So that can't be the cause. Number two, when you look at how cell towers operate, the cell signals go out in every single direction within a certain radius. So if being in the radius of a 5G cell tower or even having a 5G cell phone were the cause of people getting sick with the quote-unquote COVID-19, what we would expect is that everyone who lives within the radius of that signal will get sick, but that's not the case. The mere fact that people who are within the radius of the cell towers, some have COVID-19 and others don't, proves that it is not the radiation from the cell phone. If it were the radiation from the cell phone that was making people sick, then everybody would be sick. Everybody would have COVID-19. Even if everyone doesn't die from it, everyone within that radius of the cell tower signal would at least have it. But they don't. Even in Wuhan, China, where the 5G network was rolled out expensively, we have people in Wuhan, China who don't have COVID-19. And think as well about the people who have recovered, and this brings us to the third point, because the second point, we started with the fact that there are places in the world that don't have 5G coverage and yet people are getting COVID-19. And number two, we looked at the fact that persons within the radius of the cell towers, some have COVID and others don't. Some people who have cell phones that utilize 5G have COVID and others don't. If the cell towers were responsible, then everybody in the radius of the cell tower and everybody who has a cell phone working with 5G network would have COVID. But number three, think about the people who've recovered. All of those masses of thousands and thousands of people who've recovered, in fact, more people have recovered than people who've died. There's no evidence that all of the people who have recovered are people who no longer use their cell phones. There's no evidence that those people who have recovered are no longer within the radius of 5G network. So again, we cannot attribute it to the 5G network. Number four, radiation poisoning is extremely harmful, and we would not even expect most people who get sick from radiation poisoning to even recover in the first place. So the fourth point is that the mere fact that this coronavirus only has a kill rate of 3.5%, the mere fact that the vast majority of people who get it recover from it, suggests strongly that this is not as a result of radiation poisoning. And we could attach that to point number 5. When the atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, and again when it was dropped on Nagasaki, many people who survived the devastation woke up with radiation poisoning because the radiation from the atom bomb would have traveled through the air within a certain radius of the explosion. And the vast majority of those people who were exposed to that radiation died. There were not many recoveries. So COVID-19 has a very large recovery rate that is very much unlike radiation poisoning. But we can also add number 6. What really are the symptoms of radiation poisoning to begin with? When we look at COVID-19, the symptoms are flu-like symptoms: coughing, sneezing, headache. But when it comes to radiation poisoning, radiation causes heart failure, lung failure. It causes deformities. It causes lots of boils and rash and this kind of thing, peeling of the skin. These are the kind of things that you would expect. Just Google, don't take my word for it, Google radiation poisoning, and you'll see the totally devastating effects. Radiation poisoning shuts down the internal organs, shuts down the intestines, and so on. Whereas that's not what is happening with the vast majority of people that have the coronavirus. I've not heard those symptoms with anybody who has the coronavirus. For the most part, people who have it just have mild flu-like symptoms. That's number 6. Number 7. If the theory were true that signals from the 5G network were weakening our immune system so that we couldn't fight off COVID-19, well, COVID-19 isn't the only thing that we wouldn't be able to fight off. We wouldn't be able to fight off the common cold. Take, for example, the AIDS virus. The AIDS virus weakens the immune system so that you're unable to fight off things that the body normally would fight off. And most people who die from AIDS actually die from pneumonia because their immune system has been weakened so much that they die from pneumonia. But that is not what is happening with COVID-19. So again, we can definitely say that the idea that COVID-19 is caused by the 5G network is totally false. Now, there has been some concern that people have been raising about whether or not the 5G signal poses the risk of cancer. In 2014, the World Health Organization said that no adverse health effects have been established as being caused by mobile phones. We could extend that to health towers. Now, it is true that the World Health Organization, along with the International Agency for Research on Cancer, has classified the 5G signal as possibly carcinogenic. Carcinogenic means having the possibility of causing cancer. And some people have jumped on that bandwagon and try to use that to prove their whole conspiracy. So you see, it's carcinogenic. It can cause cancer. Well, first of all of these thousands of people that are dying of COVID-19 are not dying of cancer. That's the first thing. Cancer, COVID-19, two completely different things. So once again, these are two unrelated things. Nobody is saying that there's a global cancer epidemic in Wuhan, China that spread around the world. No. The flu-like symptoms of COVID-19 have absolutely nothing to do with cancer. Cancer is a totally different story altogether. I personally knew someone who died of 4th degree cancer, and I can tell you that COVID-19 is something very, very different. Now, in terms of being possibly carcinogenic, these international bodies like World Health Organization and this Cancer Institute, they don't only say that about 5G, they say that about all radio frequency radiation, of which mobile signals is only a part. So not only are the radio frequencies emitted from the 5G network carcinogenic, we can say that about all cell phones, about all the cell signals, whether it was 3G or 4G, all of our cell phone equipment was carcinogenic long before there was a 5G. And nobody was using that to prove a great conspiracy theory. But all of a sudden, just because we have the corona epidemic, people are lashing on to this word carcinogenic. But all these cell phones that you have been using before that were carcinogenic as well. So why didn't you get sick? So clearly, the conspiracy here is just in the minds of the conspiracy theorists, but it's not based in factuality. So let's keep this in mind. Now, in terms of this word carcinogenic, meaning possibly causing cancer, let's keep in mind as well that the radiation from your microwave oven at home is also carcinogenic. That has also been labeled by the same agency, International Agency for Research on Cancer and World Health Organization, has also labeled the radiation from microwaves as carcinogenic. So, are you going to throw away your microwave? Eating pickled vegetables and using talcum powder are also in that same category. Are we going to have a conspiracy now against pickles, that the manufacturers of pickles are trying to kill the human race? Of course not. In fact, the sunlight that comes through the atmosphere, there's ultraviolet rays of light in the sunlight that comes to us every day from the sun. That is carcinogenic as well. This is the reason why people wear suntan lotion, because they recognize it can have a carcinogenic effect if you get sunburned. So just because it's carcinogenic doesn't give us license to run off on a tangent with the next conspiracy theory. These things are labeled that way, but obviously, though they're possibly carcinogenic, which is what possibly could cause cancer, which is what carcinogenic means, these things are always at such a minimum level that we don't see any widespread cancer. And then even if we were to take it to the extreme and say, okay, well then everybody will get cancer, cancer and COVID-19 are still two different things. So let's just keep these things in mind. A toxicology report released in 2018 by the US Department of Health pointed to those people expressing safety concerns who found that male rats exposed to high doses of radiofrequency radiation develop a type of cancerous tumor in their heart. So they're holding on to the rat study and using this to prove their case. Again, there's no link between this and the global epidemic that we have with COVID-19. Are all of the thousands of people who are dying from a cancerous tumor in their heart? No. So right away, again, the conspiracy is only in their imaginations. Okay? So these things are totally unrelated. Humans are not rats. So let's just calm down. Now for this study, rats whose bodies were exposed to radiation from mobile phones for 9 hours a day, every day for 2 years, were exposed to this before they were even born. Think about that. Before they were even born. But we don't give babies cell phones, okay? Babies aren't really exposed to cell phones before they're even born either. So, you know, these are two completely separate things that we're talking about. Now, as for that study, no actual cancer link was found for the female rats or for the mice, the baby rats that were studied. So, it only affected the male rats, not the females, not the babies. So once again, if we're going to try to link this with COVID-19, we would have to argue that COVID-19 would only affect men. But that's not the case. COVID-19 affects anyone and everyone that gets those droplets on their skin. So we can't draw conclusions about human beings based on this rat study. Now, it was also found that the rats exposed to the radiation lived longer than those in the control group. So could you imagine that the very male rats who are exposed to the radiation, who developed the cancerous tumors, actually lived longer than the ones that weren't exposed to the cell phone radiation. So if we're going to use this as a comparison to human beings, then we will have to say that people who are exposed to the 5G network will live longer than people who don't have it. So we can see that to make these kinds of comparisons isn't rational. Okay? So the scientists basically concluded that this study does not give good enough evidence to suggest that human beings would get sick from such exposure. And of course, they still would continue to be cautious as they try to roll out their new equipment. Now, the radio wave band used for mobile phone networks is non-ionizing, which means that it lacks sufficient energy to break apart DNA and cause cellular damage. And that is according to David Robert Grimes, who is a physicist and cancer researcher. And he's just one of many. We could name plenty of people who document this evidence. Higher up the electromagnetic spectrum, well beyond those frequencies used by mobile phones, are the clear health risks from extended exposure. Take, for example, the sun's ultraviolet rays fall within this harmful category and can lead to skin cancers. So the sun ultraviolet rays is higher than the maximum of 300 gigahertz frequency that is being used by the 5G network. So if the 5G network is a threat to the human race, then the sunlight itself is a threat to the human race. That should help us to keep things in perspective. There are strict advisory limits for exposure to even higher energy radiation levels, such as medical X-rays and gamma rays, which can both lead to damaging effects within the human body. It is a fact that precaution needs to be used with X-ray machines because the radiation from X-ray machines is not only carcinogenic but has a much higher risk to human beings than anything that we have discussed. So I don't see the conspiracy theorists going for a ban on all X-ray machines. I don't see the conspiracy theorists saying, oh, well, the powers that be are going to try to wipe out half the world population by using X-ray machines. I don't see that happening. And yet, we know that the radiation for X-ray machines is far higher than anything used by cell phones, far higher than the 5G network. And yet we are comfortable going to the doctor for X-ray for our spine if we have a back problem. Yet we are comfortable allowing the dentist to take an X-ray to see what's going on with our teeth. Are we not? So there really is no reputable evidence that the 5G mobile network is anything dangerous for us. Now, 5G technology requires a lot of new base stations. These are masts that transmit and receive mobile phone signals. But crucially, because there are more transmitters, it means that each one can run at a lower power level than previous 4G technology, which means that the level of radiation exposure from 5G antennas will be lower. And that's the point that people are understanding, that because there are a lot more antennas, a lot more transmitters to carry the 5G network load than what we had with the 4G network, they've devised a way so that the radiation level exposure is actually going to be lower than the 4G network. So if the previous 3G and 4G networks didn't cause COVID-19, I see no reason why the even lower exposure with the 5G network would cause COVID-19. Just use our common sense. So we could go on and on and on, but the reason why I did this video is because there have now been reports in the media that people are vandalizing the mask set up by telephone companies. There are thousands of followers on Facebook, on Instagram. There are thousands of people on WhatsApp. There are thousands of people who are buying into these conspiracy theories. And around the world, there are a lot of people that are now vandalizing the property of these telephone companies. We've heard reports of people trying to set fire to some of these cell tower stations and so forth. We've had reports of service being down. Mothers can't contact their children. Fathers can't contact their sons. People who have emergencies can't reach one another because the cell service is down. Why? Because some crazy person went off and decided to vandalize the telephone company property to get revenge, because they believe that the telephone companies are responsible for this COVID-19 epidemic. So we can see how dangerous this theory is. And we really don't need, in the midst of such a desperately dark situation as COVID-19 is right now, to be striking fear and causing panic in people by causing people to believe that on top of all that we're dealing with COVID-19, that we have this mass conspiracy among telephone company providers to kill us off by promoting COVID-19. That all the governments of the world, who themselves are being adversely affected by COVID-19, are using our telephone service in order to promote it. This is not helping. This is spreading fear. This is a campaign of misinformation. And every time there is a natural disaster, we often get these things coming out of the woodwork. The next hurricane that comes along, you will hear that somebody had a weather machine to send it to destroy black people and these kind of things. For every natural disaster, for every disease outbreak, you will always hear the conspiracy theorists come out and say that this was planned. Now, don't get me wrong. Some conspiracy theories I actually believe. I am one of those people who do not buy the official story they give us concerning the 9/11 attacks. But I'm not going to go out there and spread fear and panic among people without good enough evidence. So, yes, they do exist. Some very evil people out there in some high places who don't really have our best interests at heart. We know this. But it doesn't justify buying into every single theory out there. And it doesn't justify causing panic and fear. And the people who are promoting this theory about the 5G network being responsible for the COVID-19 epidemic should at the very least say to people, caution people not to go out there and become violent, not to go out there and destroy telephone companies' property and allow yourself then to get put in prison where you're unable to see your family and your friends. They should at least caution people that once you have read my conspiracy theory, that you're not going to allow it to cause you to go out there and do something stupid. But many of them are not doing that. You know what many of them are doing? This brings me to the final point. On a lot of these websites promoting the conspiracy theory about 5G, they're actually using it now to make money. Because they're trying to say, well, don't buy 5G then. We have some products that we can sell you. We have some flash drives we can sell you. We have a different type of phone equipment we can sell you, or we can point you to a provider of a different type of service that doesn't rely on 5G network. So they are promoting their own products or the products of their friends that they are connected to. So they have actually benefited from this epidemic. They have benefited from promoting this misinformation, from promoting these conspiracy theories, by getting people to not buy the 5G network service, or to at least get people to buy from them different types of software, computer software, protective computer software, flash drives, and so on that they believe will protect them from the effects of the 5G network. So they found a way to pocket off of it. They found a way to make money off of it. That should raise red flags in our mind as well. So I hope that this has been insightful, and I hope that you will take it to heart and that you will seek credible sources for your information. You do have a wonderful day.